First up, let's talk about that shooting incident. The UCLA gunman who killed the professor and then later committed suicide has been identified as Mainak Sarkar. He's an Indian student of an engineering college. Sarkar was a doctoral candidate at UCLA, and his victim, Professor William Klug, headed a research group that Mainak was a member of. Sarkar did a Btech in Aerospace Engineering at IIT Kharagpur, followed by a master's from Stanford in California. Later, he worked for a few years with IT giant Infosys and was pursuing a doctoral scholar at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he ended his life on Wednesday evening.
We have decided, out of an abundance of caution and because of the disruption of the events, to cancel classes this afternoon and to cancel all evening programming. However, we want to resume normal operations as quickly as possible, so we will resume scheduled classes tomorrow morning.
We know for certain there are 2 fatalities that have been located inside a small room within the engineering building. We have not had any other confirmations of any other injuries anywhere else on the UCLA campus.
In fact, now the investigation into Mainak Sarkar's suicide mission has begun and has unraveled that he also possessed a kill list. This note, in fact, was recovered from the Indian shooter, named the 2 UCLA professors, along with his ex-wife, Ashley Hasti, who was later found dead at her home in Minnesota. And according to the police and information coming in, Mainak Sarkar had driven from Minnesota to Los Angeles within the last couple of days to kill the professor. Investigators believe that Sarkar also intended to kill another professor, but he was not on the campus at that time. They are now searching for a grey Nissan Sentra that they believe Sarkar drove from Minnesota all the way to Los Angeles.
What I can tell you is very early this morning, just after midnight, LAPD had called the Brooklyn Park Police Department requesting assistance on a welfare check. They indicated that this was related to the recent UCLA shooting, and they also indicated that the female that lived at this address in Brooklyn Park was on a hit list that they believe was created by the shooter in the UCLA incident. Brooklyn Park officers responded to the 2400 block of Pearson Parkway at a residence and made a welfare check where they did locate an adult female who was found deceased from a apparent gunshot wound.
All right, so authorities are investigating this fatal shooting incident that took place at the UCLA, in which a professor was killed along with the shooter, who has been identified as Mainak Sarkar of Indian origin. In fact, the police have also discovered a kill list in his apartment that led them to the body of his estranged wife that you're seeing on your screens. On the left-hand side, the person circled there is Mainak Sarkar, who has been identified as the shooter who went on that shooting spree inside the campus. We also saw police images, in fact, of police swarming the UCLA campus. The gunman opening fire inside the campus. So we believe that the shooting incident took place at the engineering building. And now the investigators are once again closely looking into the recovery of the body of a woman who is believed to be Mainak Sarkar's wife. Now, about that lady, her name has now been revealed. She's been identified as Ashley Hasti. She was married to Mainak Sarkar. This is according to information coming in the year 2011. And she was also among those on a note titled Kill List that was found in his apartment, in the apartment of Mainak Sarkar. Rasha Goel, senior journalist in Los Angeles, now joins us for more on this. Rasha, this is a very, disturbing bit of news that has come in. The identity of the shooter that has been revealed. Tell us more about Mainak Sarkar and tell us about, the note that has been titled Kill List that was found from his apartment.
Absolutely, Avantika. Very disturbing news here in Los Angeles, especially at the UCLA campus. So a little information about Sarkar. Basically, he was a 38-year-old, and he was a 2013 mechanical engineer PhD graduate from UCLA. Not something that you would expect to happen here on this campus. And basically, what the LAPD here in Los Angeles found was a kill list back at his apartment. And that kill list had 3 people on it. One, of course, unfortunately, was Professor William Klug, the 39-year-old professor who he did kill at the UCLA campus. There was also another professor whose name has not been identified or released actually to the media, who was not on campus that day. And let me also add that there's a third person on there who they did find a dead body in Minnesota, and it's identified as Ashley Husty. Now that female was also on the list, and they're saying that Ashley was actually the former wife of Sarkar, and they were married in 2011. We don't know if they actually divorced now, but she definitely was also on that list. And her body, according to the officials, it seems like she had been killed before he actually made this move to UCLA.
Right. And Rasha, do we know, the motive behind this gruesome murder of the professor? We do believe that Mainak Sarkar was heavily armed. In fact, multiple magazines of ammunition was also recovered by the police when they went inside the campus. Tell us a little bit more about this person. What exactly are the angles that the police are looking into? Rasha, can you hear me? Okay, we'll just try and go back to Rasha Goel there and establish contact with her. But she was giving us more details about that horrific murder cum suicide incident that was reported from the UCLA campus. And the shooter, in fact, has been identified as a person from Indian origin. In fact, he was, from the IIT Kharagpur. He also studied at Stanford in California, and he was pursuing a PhD when this incident occurred. And we also believe that another person was discovered to be dead. She has been identified as Ashley Husty, who was married to him and was also among those on that cryptic note, in fact, that was titled Kill List, that has been recovered from Mainak Sarkar. Let's just first listen into some reactions from the investigating agencies before we try and get back to Rasha, senior journalist in Los Angeles.
We have decided, out of an abundance of caution and because of the disruption of the events, to cancel classes this afternoon and to cancel all evening programming. However, we want to resume normal operations as quickly as possible, so we will resume scheduled classes tomorrow morning.
We know for certain there are 2 fatalities that have been located inside a small room within the engineering building. We have not had any other confirmations of any other injuries anywhere else on the UCLA campus.
Let's go once again to Rasha Goel. Rasha, do we know any, do we have any details about the possible motive behind this kind of an act by Mainak Sarkar? What led him to commit a gruesome murder like this? What led him to go on a shooting spree? Because we do believe that he was heavily armed and multiple magazines of ammunition was also recovered by the police.
Absolutely, Avantika. Actually, speaking to Chief Charlie Beck, he's made a couple of announcements here. First of all, to reconfirm, yes, he was heavily armed. In fact, he had 2 semi-automatic pistols with multiple magazines of ammunition and also loose rounds of ammunition that were found in his bag. And there was also ammunition found back at his apartment. Now, Chief Charlie Beck here in Los Angeles is saying that apparently they had a dispute over intellectual property. He had blogged earlier that the professor had done him wrong, but the chief of police here is qualifying that and saying that he seemed like a mentally disturbed individual, because earlier in 2013 he had looked at William Klug as a mentor and actually cited him as a mentor of his. So it's very confusing to the officials here, especially the LAPD and all the police that's working on this, to find what would really cause him to do this. And, the letter that they did find from him in his bag was to go to his apartment and check on his cat. So that's something also very disturbing and odd for somebody, especially for a male, to write, for the police to check on.
Absolutely. But why, Rasha, was Professor William S. Klug, the point of target?
Well, it seems that he had actually been working with Professor William Klug on some, again, what they qualify in terms as intellectual property. So he feels that the professor maybe released some of the information, or he kind of backstabbed him. You know, he had been a student of William Professor Klug in the past, and had worked with him, had been on his research team, in fact was cited on his research team. So I think that is what really instigated him to go after this particular professor. And again, like we said, we don't have the name of the second professor, but he definitely was targeting these two professors in the engineering department at UCLA.
Well, this shooting, Rasha, must have indeed rattled educators across the country once again. What more do we know about his family, or, the duration for which he was staying in the United States?
Well, they're still trying to unravel details about that. We are still trying to find out more. Again, the only thing we really do know is that he was married to this woman named Ashley Husty, who apparently the marriage was not working out. He did have a job with another company out in Minnesota, but friends, we haven't really been able to talk to any friends. Speaking to other neighbors that were formerly at UCLA, they described him as a very quiet and reserved person. So this really does come as a shock to many. Now, I also do want to point out to viewers over there that Minnesota to Los Angeles is quite a distance. So this is definitely something that was disturbing him and was planned, because you're looking at over a day's worth of drive to come into LA. So something really, really must have triggered him. Again, 38 years old, originally from India, but we don't have too many other details except for that he really wasn't in a very happy marriage with Ashley.
All right, Rasha Goel, senior journalist in Los Angeles, thanks so much for sharing with us all the information that you've been able to gather about this terrifying shooting incident that has come to light, and with the shooter being identified as Mainak Sarkar of Indian origin.